Welcome to the PantheonPlus Rewind. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the PantheonPlus Rewind. My name is Minus, and once again, I am joined by Theric and Omega Contagion, and we're here to talk Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, MMORPGs, and everything in between. So first up, what's going on, gentlemen?
Well, outside of a small domestic engineering emergency this morning in my household, the furnace decided to give up the ghost. I'm doing well.
Yeah, you're not frozen to your chair anymore. That's good. What's up, Omega?
I'm doing good. Just hanging out in quarantine and tinkering around with some video editing software, getting ready to do my channel stuff.
Ooh, exciting. Well, everybody, we're going to get right into stuff here. We are excited to announce that you are now able to download this show on iTunes and now Spotify, which is super exciting. And obviously still from our direct podcast hosting partner. The links for all of these options will be in the description of the video below. So if you like the show, please consider subscribing on your preferred service or app. So with that, let's get moving. This week in Visionary Realms news and notes. So let's talk about VR in the social media, Twitter, forums, updates, that kind of thing. We're going to start with Twitter today. And honestly, this is one I wanted us all to answer, which I think is actually pretty cool. VR posted a Twitter question out there that said, when did you become a Pantheon supporter and why? So I thought it would be kind of fun to talk to the community about when we did and why we did. So I'll start. And I'd actually looked through some stuff to try to figure out the exact date that I pledged. But I became a champion pledge on December 6th, 2018. And our first video, we actually covered the cleric on December 13th. So I want to say I started following the game sometime in September because I know I followed it before I, pledged. And that's where we kind of came up with the idea, Poiru and myself, to make a website as a means to kind of congregate the information into an easy to find location and get the word out about Pantheon. I really just became really drained on WoW and some of the issues with BFA. The negativity was really bad and I started to really lose my passion for the game, which I'd done in the past, but this just felt different. So I started, believe it or not, I really did this. I went to Google and I just searched MMORPGs because I love the genre and I like gaming and I'll console game like anybody else, but I'm happiest gaming when I'm playing an MMORPG that I'm into. So that's when I actually stumbled upon Pantheon, in large part because of Brad's name being attached. And I was playing with people in WoW that I wanted to come with me wherever I went. And Haya, who's one of my best friends in the IRL, I guess you'd say IRL still. I was gonna say outside the IRL, but in the IRL world, he was a massive EQ fan. So there was that little bit of knowing Brad's name was on it and tying it to EQ. I'm like, I think he'll come with me. And then it kind of helped me bring some other people with me for my WoW guild. But the biggest thing is the social aspects presented in the goals of the game, as well as sort of the more methodical play style, was very important to me. When you add to that the classes feeling independent of one another, which, a lot of the games I've been playing, it's like one class can do everything type of thing. I just hate that. So like those classes being individual and there not being a fear of allowing them to have their own benefits and strengths, I just felt like the game was being built for a specific crowd, sort of like the original MMOs were, instead of trying to make a game that would appeal to everybody. And then, next thing it's a year and a half and still more excited than ever, and it's just been a crazy journey, and here we are. So that's my little run into Pantheon. I think out of you guys, I'm actually the youngest Pantheon supporter, which is funny, and not from an age, but from a time supporting. So Theric, how about you with that question?
So I found out about Pantheon way back when the Kickstarter was going, and that was back in 2014. And I remember watching the pitch video and, Brad had that infectious enthusiasm, right? So I jumped in right then and there with the Knights Pledge back then. After that, I headed over to the forums and I signed up and I started to, engage with people about the game. Unfortunately, that Kickstarter didn't, move forward. And I decided it was best to sort of step away, let the project, find their investors and come back when the time was right. So I still received the monthly newsletter emails, but I didn't really give them much attention. And then fast forward about 4 years, and I noticed those emails had subject lines like state of the game, and basically found out the Pantheon was in development. So I came back. But I had to decide, did I want to commit to the game again? And not only financially commit, but in terms of time and energy, because Pantheon's a game that needs that kind of commitment, I think, if you're going to get the most out of it. Like, if you really want to enjoy the game, you need to be part of the community. So I sat down at my desk. It was a slow day of work, and I sat down and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna, you know, put my cards on the table and engage. And here we are 2 years later, and I don't regret it at all. So I jumped in, I made the pledge that I needed to at the time. And the thing about my pledge and what I committed to is the community building and the creative projects that Pantheon has inspired for me. And most of all, the friends that I've made following the game has been something really special. So that's how I got involved, and that's where I'm at right now with it.
After I read Theric said something about you can see your time on the forums, I went there and checked my profile, and it says I joined August 7th, 2018. But I know I followed the game for a while before that. So I went diving through YouTube and checked all the things that I thought I saw first, but I couldn't remember which one it really was. And then I checked the VR YouTube channel, and I distinctly remember watching the making of a city stream with Carnage live very early on in my Pantheon following. I remember it because when they got to the part about the form of Osirico, and specifically the hammer of Osirico, my jaw just dropped. The idea of this ever-changing tapestry being woven with the deeds of the players was just so incredible to me. It gave me really strong Sword Art Online vibes. I just thought about how cool it would be to be on a world first clear of a dungeon or a raid or something, and having that like inscribed in the world forever. At least that's how I remember it. If I'm way wrong, well, I mean, who cares? That's the thing that got me into the game. And looking back at the date of the video, that was November 21st, 2017. And I've been nerding out about the game ever since. And the thing that really drew me in, though, was the fact that it was being designed from the ground up with group content as one of the main pillars of the design. And at that point in time, I was heavy into ESO, and that game is basically a solo game with other people running around in it. And I really longed for that old school MMO experience that I kept hearing about. And the more I looked into the game and the more I heard stories about EverQuest and stuff like that, and what those games were like for people, I was just amazed and a little bit jealous at the tales that were told. And I just knew that a modern day MMO could recapture that, and who better than the one of the original creators himself, Brad McQuaid.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for sharing those stories. It's really interesting, Theric, that you started back like when that Kickstarter was announced. I couldn't imagine, the main topic everybody talks about is being patient, right? And it's so easy for me, especially when I'm sitting here with you two saying, oh, guys, come on, we just got to be patient. And Theric, you've been following it for 4 years longer than I have. So.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. And I understand why people get impatient. I'm a very patient person, just sort of naturally, but it's a long time, right? So it's about the level of attention and how much you're sort of paying attention. I think that's the key that's allowed me to stick around for so long.
You'd have a 6-year-old kid if you had a kid that year. That's something to think about, right?
Pretty scary.
All right, so we'll jump off of that topic. Thanks for sharing, guys. And in the comments of the YouTube video, if you're watching on YouTube or even in Discord, however you want to share it, please share your guys' thoughts even more if you didn't reply to that Twitter. I know that everyone's not on Twitter. That's one of the big reasons we like doing this kind of stuff. So then there was one more. This one's a little more lighthearted. And on Twitter, Pantheon shared the question, who would win? And it's great that they actually had to put in parentheses, hypothetically, just in case you guys didn't know, this is hypothetical, between a Darkmere summoner and a gnome summoner, and why. So here's what's funny. I'm going to read you guys' comments here. So Bazgrim said he's going to go with the gnome because they literally are magic, unless the Darkmere can somehow get the fight to happen near water. So, really logically thinking it out. Drakatak said Darkmere because cancel magic would literally make the gnome disappear. I like that. Greyjack said gnome. They're better at social distancing. That was a good one. I thought that was funny. Then Drakatak came back, and this was a good one. I like this. He said everybody would win if you did a spotlight on the summoner next. So that's
my favorite one. I love that one.
It got the most likes. Yeah, it got the most likes. It got a comment. It actually got a retweet. So people were into that one. And then Ren said, and I believe Ren is Mr. Cake Donut. He said gnomes because screw those fish elves. Listen, I'm in.
Killing me, Donut.
Then we had Michael Schmutz said Darkmere are more devious, and they're also not a gnome, so that's why they would win. A few more here that are funny. We had Darkmere. They'd be much more willing to fight dirty. That's from @the_dark_ice. Yeah, that's what it is. And then we had Michael Becker say gnome. They can duck under furniture while their arc mental does the work. The silly Darkmere are too large to fit in small hidey holes. That was pretty good too. And then Sean Ryan, his is @orbiting_mind. Which one has a full-time job and which one is the basement dweller? So funny comment there to us as MMORPGers. Listen, we have to be able to joke about that. So here was my take on it. I'll save mine. I saved mine here for last. I put gnome without a doubt. They are balls of energy which have basically summoned a body. The Darkmere couldn't even summon a snorkel when they got to Terminus to help them breathe underwater. So that's my take on it. I think we know who's already won that. Bodies versus bunch of fish elves dying in the water.
That's pretty good. Pretty good.
So, we're not always going to have a ton of VR news. Every other week we'll get some dev stream stuff and maybe a little details that come around that. But we were actually fortunate to get one more piece here of VR news, and that was in the form of their VR producers letter. And we'll have that link down in the description. I'm not going to go through all of it because most of it is a complete recap of the different streams they've done, the pictures of the races that they showed. So it's a lot of recapping. If you've been keeping up, a lot of it's going to be familiar to you. However, there was one small section at the bottom that a lot of people might have missed, and I'm going to read through some of that. It said, what's been happening this week? So they just highlighted what their programmers are working on. There's some nice little interesting pieces here. So it says, Ross has been banging out new character animations like there's no tomorrow. He finished off a few combat idle stance variants, snuck in an emote animation, and is now focusing on monk animations. The monk fans out there getting excited for that, I'm sure. We had the next one. Jared is focused on more UI work and has put together the beginnings of the character inventory and stats windows, replacing what we had as placeholder windows. These newly designed windows show all the information you need, including a nice intuitive interface for the acclamation system. So they're improving that, making that prettier. I like it. Jimmy has been building a continent, it seems like. He put a ton of work in getting zones ready for pre-alpha 5. That's said right there. And then even in parentheses beside it says, and eventually alpha. Tease. Man, it feels like that girl in school, right? She'd hang out with you. She'd talk to you. She'd pat you on the shoulder. She'd never date you. She would never date you.
Man, you talk to girls in school?
I tried.
That's scary.
Yeah. Making insane progress in blocking out zones and placing assets. Some puzzle work is being done as areas need to be moved, resized, or fit into the zone layout. He's got 4 zones on the go right now. So guys, he's moving 4 zones. Everyone's like, how many zones are there? That's exciting to know that those are just the ones moving. It means that they're being pieced into other areas. So that's really good. JN is busy writing content for the PA5 zones, PA5, writing into storylines and quests. Lots of stuff to keep our writers busy, they said. And 2 more here. The entire programming team keeps their schedule full as they integrate new formulas, stats, and systems into the main code base, crushing bugs, fixing and scaling tools, and ensuring new builds are able to be completely compiled routinely. So they're getting a lot quicker at putting builds out. That's really important. And then the last piece, with all this going on, Tim has been populating the PA5, once again, zones with life and making sure the NPCs are acting in a respectful manner, or at least acting as intended. So a lot of stuff going on there. Yeah, for a little blurb at the end of a VR producer's letter, I think there might have been people who missed that. That's a lot of good little teases. And I'm going to be honest, it makes me feel like pre-alpha 5 is probably pretty close. What do you guys think?
I agree. I think there's a lot you can read between the lines there. I'm excited to see the writing piece that Jan Gerhardt's doing some lore stuff and quest information, but the storylines and the zone information from a lore perspective is exciting for me.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think it shows, a lot of stuff is being worked on, and we haven't really had like a patch notes type segment that they kind of did once. So it's cool to see this type of layout in their letter.
Yeah, very similar to like a tiny, not techie way to read patch notes in a sense. So
Right.
Well, awesome. That's all I got for VR news and notes. When the community speaks, we listen. Let's dig into social media and see what they're talking about.
Okay, so we'll head over to PantheonMMO.com and see what the forums are what's going on over the forums this week. Firstly, I want to highlight a post by Bones13, and this is in the news and announcements section of the forums. So he wanted to let people know he actually received the email from Visionary Realms asking him about naming an NPC in Pantheon. At the end of the last VR dev stream on April 2nd, Ben Dean actually mentioned that this email was forthcoming and to keep an eye out for it for those that had chosen this pledge level back then. And just for a bit of background, so this was one of the perks from some of the very earliest pledge packages back in 2015, and it's not a part of any current pledge packages. So it's sort of a limited time thing that's no longer available. And they reiterated this back in April 2019 in the newsletter that VR put out that month. And just to quote what it was said there, it said, each pledge may submit up to 3 names for an NPC that will be placed in the game. One or more of these names will be used in the game. Each submission should include the NPC's race. All submissions are subject to approval by the design team, and submission guidelines will be sent out prior to the selection process for this reward. So obviously that's what's going on right now. So if you didn't pledge back then, you kind of missed your chance to get that Fippy Darkpaw NPC roaming around outside Thronefest that you might be dreaming of. The responses in the forum post actually rightly commend VR for following up on a pledge perk from 5 years ago, even though it's no longer offered. And one reply got my attention because it came from Vandrad, and he's a contributor to PantheonPlus U. He's a well-known member of the community, and he had an interesting question he actually wrote about. So he wrote, quote, given that we know nothing about the languages of the various races, other than generic human, that is, coming up with a name that even barely fits with the style of the racial language will be impossible. And in true Vandrad style, he goes on to say, let's say someone decides to play an ogre and wants to name the ogre merchant after their mother. Would a name like Gretchen Johnson really fit within the ogre language? Or is it the request, to name an NPC, just give us a name and we'll find an NPC out there somewhere and we'll apply that name? So that's a pretty good question. And it got a response. It was confirmed by somebody else who received the email that VR did ask for not only the name of the NPC, but what race they would be as well. And that's goes back to what I said a minute ago about the original pledge. So not only can those lucky early adopters put Fippy Darkpaw in Terminus, but they might just be able to make him into a Scar or an Ogre or a Halfling. But never an Elf, because, that'd be sacrilege. And we got a little more information on the subject from VR in a follow-up post, which stated, quote, to answer some of the speculation, these NPC names can be used for a variety of purposes. They can be quest givers, shopkeepers, or just regular inhabitants in Terminus. He also reminded folks that the development team has complete control over where each name is used. So Fippy may be a shady Scar fishmonger on the outskirts of Thronefest, or might be not. The second discussion I want to highlight on the forums is a bit older, but it's an important topic, and it does continue to generate a lot of buzz over there as well. And it's very relevant. So it was posted by Brass, and Brass is the community manager for VR, and this is back in mid-March. It's been viewed over 2,000 times. So she wrote, quote, hello, Pantheons. We wanted to share this with you. NVIDIA is putting out a call to PC gamers everywhere to download the Folding at Home application and start putting their spare clock cycles towards advancing humanity's scientific knowledge of coronavirus. So if you're not aware of Folding at Home, it's basically a way of lending your unused computing power to scientific research. The more people that contribute, the more data the researchers can crunch, and the closer we move towards finding a cure or an immunization for the current pandemic. Many people are shut in and feeling helpless, and this is really a way to do something productive and helpful. So part of the Pantheon community, lots of members jumped on this right away, but it was even ramped up by a longtime community member named Selindor. And he took the opportunity to the next level by issuing a challenge to guilds to basically invoke a friendly competition to get people going to see who could contribute the most. But what ended up happening, sort of in true Pantheon community style, is rather than competing with each other, the Pantheon community joined together as the Legacy of Ages team. And the competition is really just to beat the COVID-19 boss mob. So join the cause, head over to the forums and check that out. We'll leave some links in the video description for the YouTube video, as well as on the podcast webpage so that you can join up. So what do you guys think about that?
I think that's pretty cool. I heard about Folding at Home, I don't know, about a month ago, I guess now. And it's really cool that NVIDIA has done that. I mean, that kind of technology in this day and age could really help bring this thing, to an end faster. So I applaud all those people who've done that for sure.
Yeah, it's nice to see. We talk about community matters and to be a small community at this moment, smaller than what the community will end up being, and seeing this kind of teamwork over important things. While we may all debate a bunch of things in the game and we may have different opinions on things and we may have different experiences that we want to see within Pantheon, it's cool when that kind of stuff can be set aside and we can find that common ground. And right now we all have a lot of common ground, right? With all being kind of shut in. So it's really cool. It's really neat to see things like this come from the Pantheon community. And I hope and expect that over, the future of this game and when we're playing, that you'll see more stuff where the community comes together to support causes like this. It's just a pretty heartwarming, pretty cool thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then lastly, over on the forums, I want to give a quick shout out to longtime member of the Pantheon community, Cheyenne. So Cheyenne runs the website Old School Crafters, which is a crafting focused fan site dedicated to Pantheon's harvesting and crafting community. And he does showcases of members of the community doing profiles called Crafting and the Community, which he also posts on the crafting section of the forums. Basically what it is a series of questions. I think it's like 4 or 5 questions outlining the person's level of interest in crafting, their experience with crafting in MMOs, and what kind of crafter they usually create, and so on and so forth. This week, Cheyenne featured Thorndeep, and Thorndeep's another well-known member of the Pantheon community. And you might remember Thorndeep from one of my favorite videos, which was the I Am Pantheon video that she made, Minus. And in that video, he portrayed the elusive summoner class of Pantheon. And so if you go over there and you read his profile, it's kind of funny because we actually learn that Thorndeep is usually a cook or a baker in MMOs. That's his profession of choice. And that kind of explains, if you watch that I Am Pantheon video, why his summoner decided to summon a banana. So I thought it was kind of funny, and I like Thorndeep. I've communicated with him a couple times. Super nice guy. So if you're into crafting and you want to maybe do one of those crafting profiles, head over to oldschoolcrafters.com and you can read all about it there.
That's so funny. I was really hoping you were going to say something about the banana because that was one of my favorite moments. I just remember there were a few videos we got. One was from Caffeine Injected and one was from Thorndeep, and it sort of changed the whole atmosphere because they were early submitters to it. And it kind of changed how everybody decided to record their video. Like it became more of be your character, not just talk about the character. And it's really because those two guys put so much into it. And that's where I'm like, man, I need to up my game. And to be honest, when I watch it all the time, I always look at those guys and I look at Tess, who was the bard. And I think, man, I could have been a much better rogue. Could have definitely been. So it was a really good time. It's a good bring up.
I really love that video. I go back and watch it every once in a while. And Tessa's rogue is amazing. And everybody took everybody had a different take on it. If some people were very serious, but Thorndeep's, the silliness of his summoner was really funny to me. So yeah, I'd encourage everybody to go look back through the video catalog on the PantheonPlus YouTube channel and give that a watch because it's really, really good. Okay, and then so we'll go over to the Pantheon MMO subreddit and see what's going on over there. So there was a really interesting discussion started by a user named Havish, and it was about what is described as, I'll give it the term of hidden and latent effects as they pertain to items in MMOs. The conversation was initiated by a video made by a YouTuber called Huntin for Games, in which he makes a really compelling argument about why MMOs should follow the path that Final Fantasy XI did with regard to item design. It basically boils down to this. Gear in an MMO should have hidden statistics or effects, that is, bonuses or effects that aren't explicitly stated in the item's description, and latent effects, which are those that are triggered only when certain unstated conditions are met. Now, obviously, this is something that you would expect people to have strong opinions about, and there was. So let's take a look at some of the responses that the topic generated. The first one was from Karnaworky. He said he supports the idea, but would modify it. Rather than completely hiding the effect, list unknown effect or something like that on the item, just so that people know the item isn't totally worthless at face value. Or if not, at least give players the ability to do a detect item on the item so they can see that. Another person whose name I'm not going to say because I will mispronounce it said this concept is similar to what VR has said about the perception system, the flagging of players based on things they have done. What if you integrated this idea of hidden and latent effects into the perception system somehow? What if keepers could detect an item's hidden or latent qualities? which I think is a very cool idea. Another user said not for general items, but perhaps for epic items, maybe server or world firsts or rare raid boss loot. Somebody said it doesn't really matter. It'll just be on Reddit in a week anyway, which I thought was kind of funny. Somebody said it creates myths in a game and encourages discovery and experimentation. And I'm going to pick up on that in a second. Somebody else said it runs counter to everything modern game design teaches, and thus what gamers expect in games these days. Everything is explicitly stated, and when it's not, people get really upset. Now, this person also said they would support it because it does create a worlds, not games idea, and it seems to be in line with VR's philosophy. Somebody else said discovering these things adds another thing to do, right? So what if you just, you've done all your quests or you've done your crafting and you're sort of bored looking for something to do, testing out items to see if they have these sort of hidden properties. And he asked what role flavor text might play in this. And then the last two were pretty negative. They just didn't like the idea at all. Somebody said, please no. And somebody else said it feels like a gotcha system or a, loot box sort of idea. So my thoughts on this are that like I said, I love the idea and I know people will hate it, but here's why I love it. Because I think that what compels us to do things in the real world. So just sort of ask yourself that. And in my mind, it's discovery, right? We don't know everything about the world we actually live in, far from it. We're motivated to find these truths. So hidden and latent qualities on items in an MMO, in my mind, keep a layer of the world mysterious. It might take years of experimentation or some random scenario to occur when an item's true property is found. And can you imagine how cool that would be? And there were myths that existed back in like EQ. I remember there were rumors that if you did a certain, dance, that rare mob would spawn. And I'm not sure there's any truth to that. I'm probably not. But the fact that that could have existed is really intriguing. And in my mind, a world doesn't reveal its secrets. You live in it to discover them. But I'll throw it over to you guys. Midas, what do you think about that?
Yeah, there's a couple things. The comment from I'm going to try to say his name because I butcher people's names anyway. So it's Imager Kamakamam. So it's not even close. But it's interesting because he brings up the perception system. And I tend to agree with what he said. But here's my interesting take on that. VR is taking this stance, and I will say I'm not sure I agree with it, where they want to take the perception system and make it completely separate from the regular game experience. And I gotta be honest, I know they're doing it to try to appease the people who are like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't care about lore. But I feel like there's so much more power in the perception system if it is more hard-coded into the game instead of being a thing on the side. So I love that idea there. I think that that's pretty awesome. But I do think that like having the unknown effect on there would be important. Or maybe after so many uses or having like some sort of a leveling system on the gear that once you gain so much experience while wearing it, the effect will appear. But I mean, I know it, and then you're just going to be able to read it online. But I think it would just be something like that, or at least just say unknown effect, because I would lose my mind as I'm number crunching and I take off a piece of gear, and then all of a sudden my numbers are low and I don't know why. So it's interesting. It's an interesting take, but you're right. It does increase discovery, and I think that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can see the argument you're making, and I know that is why a lot of people wouldn't be in favor of that. Omega, any thoughts on that?
I love this idea. I think it's super cool. But I want to see it tied into a crafting system of some kind. Like there's, you have your weapon crafters and your armor crafters, but then like maybe there's some sort of item scryer crafting line that you can go down, and you be those people that people would bring their, unknown, untapped items to, and they could do their little mini game or whatever they got to do to find out what the thing on that item is. And I think that's just another layer of community interaction. And, you got to find someone who's high enough level of scrying to detect this high item that you have. Maybe you pay them, like tip them. I think it would be really cool to have something like that in the game. In terms of having like unknown effect or something on the item, I don't really care too much either way if it says that or not. Like I think it would be even more cool if you have this sword that you think is mid-level and nothing too fancy about it, and then 2 levels later, after using it, it says unknown effect on it then. And you're like, holy crap, I had no idea something was special about this sword. I got to find a item scryer to figure out what it is. Or sell it for a crap load of money, and maybe someone will get something crappy. Maybe they'll get something good. I don't know.
You just brought up something I need to comment on because it's awesome. And I just thought of this because of what you said, and it's about involving the crafters. What if there were items that were like mysterious gem, like different colors? When you're crafting, you can throw one of those on there and it's going to add some random effect you can't see to the gear. And it'll just maybe on the gear say like, you know, red gem infused, blue gem infused. And there's just this huge wild list of things that it could have done, negative or positive. So you take like this chance in buying this custom gear. I think that would be one of the coolest things ever.
That's taking it to the next level, and it's a little scary, but I could see it. But if item scryer is a profession, oh man, I'm there. That's what I'm doing for sure. I'm usually like a woodworker or like a Fletcher, but if you could be an item scryer, oof, I'm in.
Okay. I think you'd also have to like look deeper into that system and like crafting as a whole. Can people be proficient at more than one thing? And in this case, I really hope they can't, because, you know, then everyone would just be their own item scryer, and that would be boring.
That's true. Okay, so we'll head over to Facebook and finish up there. There weren't any real deep discussions this week, but there was one comment that I really wanted to point out, and it came from Matt Ferry. And he was thinking back to the Fairtale stream. And there was, you know, sometimes we get wrapped up in watching these streams and we look at certain things, and those small quotes from the developers can slip by our attention. And with all the detail that was featured in that stream, he remembered the devs saying, quote, "If it wasn't fun as a square box, why would it be fun with all the window dressings?" And I remember watching the stream live, and that statement stuck out to me as well. Because one of the critiques that gets tossed around a lot lately with regard to VR is that they're too focused on small details nobody will notice after the first time they run through a certain area. But picking up on that quote, it should remind everyone that don't mistake attention to detail for lack of fundamentals, right? VR knows that, like I said, like the quote says, if it's not fun, the game isn't fun, all those details aren't going to matter. So they know that, and it isn't an either or situation. You can't have one or the other, and more of one does not necessarily equal less of the other. So I just wanted to highlight that quote because I think it was really, really insightful, and it gives a lot of reassurance to some of those concerns that are thrown around. And that's it for this week's community discussions.
Just what are those creators up to out there?
Awesome. So here's what the community creators were up to this week. We'll start with us here at PantheonPlus. So in the attempt to stream games, our goal for streaming games is that we want to experience different MMORPGs. We want to jump back to some of the ones we've played. We want to discover ones we've passed over. And the whole point that I like to do that is to just learn more about MMORPGs. Let's be honest, if an MMORPG is still around and it's been around for a long time, it means there's a core group of people playing it. So there must be something good about it, which means, in my opinion, there's something that you can take away from it. There's something to learn from it. So we played, like I said, DDO last week, and we're probably going to be playing it this upcoming week. And holy cow, did we have a great time. I think we have like 9 or 10 people playing it. And I'm just really surprised how fun this game is. It's very different. I don't think there's any other MMORPG I've played that feels like this game. And there's a lot of things that really keep the D&D spirit of the tabletop that players can enjoy. And I really like, even like in the combat log, you can see dice rolls. So you can see where you failed and why you didn't crit, or when you try to open a door and you didn't get it. It's just really kind of cool that you're seeing how the details are playing out, whereas most of these games are in games already. Just their underlying systems. And it's all these checks are really important as well for like the dungeons. And I'd love to see something like that in Pantheon. Maybe not on the above, but just the way that they're used. There's anything from a strength check in a dungeon to activate a lever. There was an intelligence check we couldn't do because none of us were smart enough to activate a rune. And then there's the ability to spot danger as a rogue and disarm traps and find secret doors. It's a really different way to look at support, which we recently talked about, or utility, or whatever you want to call it, gameplay outside of combat. And I think a lot of times people think of support and utility, and it's a lot of times in combat. Everybody's thinking about what is it like when you're fighting. But this game, outside of combat, is probably one of the most enjoyable MMORPGs I've ever played. And I'm really shocked because I did not expect to like it as much as I am right now. Moving along on Pantheon Plus U, we were actually talking about that topic of support. And we had our co-host of Micah join us. So that is up on YouTube now. You can check that out on demand. And we were really excited as well to put out a pre-alpha impressions video for Valere, which is me and Theric both played this game. And we're actually really excited to test again. So if you haven't heard of the game, please check it out. I think you'll be pretty excited about what it's bringing to the table if it's your type of thing. I think it has a ton of promise. It's a small team, but man, they bust their butts. And Theric, we were just talking about that recently. We both kind of want to get back in there and play.
Yeah, no, we were on Discord talking with Dr. Greenspoon, the developer, and just praising the game and saying how much I didn't realize. You forget how much you realize that you enjoy that group dynamic in a game and the group content. And once you've had a taste, you want a little more, right?
Yeah. It was really fun making the video because I really wanted to make sure I represented our experience well. So it took me a lot longer than a typical video because I just wanted to make sure to credit them on the positive stuff there. There was a lot to it. Jumping into Bazgrim's content, he didn't put any videos out this week, but he did let people know on Twitter that if you follow his monthly campfire email, he kind of recaps all the stuff he's done. There won't be one for the month, but he'll be back at it next month. So if you remember that, but you don't follow him on Twitter, just a little heads up there. Nathan was on freaking fire. This is a guy that when you quarantine, expect content. We're going to see some puppets, guys. Nathan was on fire. He actually, most of his videos were actually outside of Pantheon, but if you're into Final Fantasy, Resident Evil, EverQuest, Chronicles of Valeria, he does videos on all those and the details going on. But he did put out a video detailing some of the guild system stuff that, was kind of mentioned in different areas, in different interviews or in different segments of like conversation through VR, kind of putting that together and talked about what that might look like and how important it is. And then he did a video that is definitely related to MMORPGs and you can relate to Pantheon, but it's a video talking about how Microsoft is actually working on raid boss AI. And that's an interesting topic because that is a huge conversation piece talking about, do you want bosses that learn from you? So it's not just go in and rinse and repeat the mechanics in a time fashion. And there's a lot of different opinions on that. There's people who are like, no way, that wouldn't be fun at all. And then there's people like, yeah, that'd be awesome to have to be able to adapt on the fly. But then you have to ask yourself, like, how crazy can it get? Like, can it get to a point that the AI is so smart we'll never beat it? So I don't know. That's an interesting topic. Omega, you play a lot of MMORPGs. You do the news for other games. I mean, is that a good idea or a bad idea?
It's a dangerous idea. I think though, in the grand scheme of things, it's a really good idea. If players had the ability to know when that system was going to be active, I think would be helpful. Like, you have different difficulties of dungeon and raid content. So maybe having like an AI level of activation that you could choose. So know that you're fighting the hardest, craziest boss, but you're also going to get better loot and stuff like that. I think people would enjoy that rather than just being forced into this AI system where you're going to get, Skynet kicking your ass all the time.
Yeah. The last thing we need is the Lich King to come to life and take over the internet. So.
Yeah, exactly. And then the game becomes self-aware and it's just going to be terrible.
Yeah. You can't beat anything. They're all resistant to all our spells they've gotten. They have their own acclamation system. That's pretty funny. All right. And the last thing to mention here is BattleAxTheater on BattleAx Live covered the topic of fast travel in MMORPGs. You can check it out on their on-demand page on YouTube. And answer the question of where you stand on fast travel. That's an interesting concept. I think fast travel has to be heavily designed for the game. It is not something you can add in. And I personally do not want to see any fast travel personally in Pantheon. Okay, and with that, let's jump into the next topic.
The Plus in PantheonPlus. Here's your MMORPG news.
All right, so this week in quick MMO news, first up is Core Punk. Core Punk released its Q1 2020 update newsletter. For those of you who don't know, Core Punk is an isometric MMO being created by developer Artificial Core, and I describe it as a mix between Albion Online and WildStar, with a little dash of steampunk thrown in. You can head over to their website and watch the full trailer, sign up for beta access if any of this interests you. So in the latest newsletter, they just update us on some progress, and I think for most of us, the best piece of the news is the unlocking of gender and character customization options. Originally, you just got a choice of a hero type. They had a few specializations between them, but you didn't get to choose anything else. And now you get to choose your preferred gender, tweak some of the MMO standard options like hairstyle, facial features, skin color, eye color, etc. They've been working hard on 6 of the heroes for the closed beta test that's upcoming, but I'm not sure when. Just making sure that they have 3 distinct weapon mastery lines. Like, for example, the champion hero, which is a hero that you see in most of their footage right now. He can choose between two-handed, sword and board, or an archery bow skill line. They say more info about the weapon masteries will be in their next stream, which is set to take place in early May. They say it'll be a shorter stream, about 30 minutes, and a much longer one coming in June. It's probably going to be a couple hours at least. These 2 planned streams will focus on the start location and early player experience. They got some nice screenshots up on the website, so be sure to go check those out. And I really like the art style of this game. It's far more detailed than Albion is, and it has a much more interesting looking world. It's a little darker in tone. It still has that Wildstar comedic flair for anyone who's played Wildstar before it died. Finally, they talk about their business model, which they decided to go with a buy-to-play and a cosmetic store route, which will likely include some kind of battle pass system. They say they're committed to not having anything like boosters or anything that could affect the gameplay, and instead focus on cosmetics that can be purchased outright or earned through a battle pass progression system. This game looks like a lot of fun to me, and I think it'll be one that the PantheonPlus community could have a lot of fun in. What do you think, Minus?
Yeah, this is a game that actually Sacred from the Rainborn Guild was kind of excited about and linked a while back. It looks cool. It has that steampunk. We were starting to see a little more of that. I know how much you like that. A little bit of a steampunk feel-ish.
Mm-hmm.
It looks pretty cool. Like you said, I think you compared it to the games pretty well. It has like that isometric view-ish type of thing. So I'm interested to see what it's like. I don't know yet. I haven't seen enough, but the little bit I saw at the beginning was pretty cool. I'll have to check out one of the streams.
There's a YouTube channel, Devalin, and does a really good job covering this game, actually. He also covers Valair, which is how I sort of discovered his channel. And he's got quite a few connections, actually, with the developers of this game. So if you want to know more about it, check out Devalin's channel on YouTube.
Nice. Next up, in Defend the Night. Defend the Night had their Q&A show with Simmerg the other day. Sadly, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet myself. But if anyone's interested, you can find it on Simmerg's YouTube channel, which we'll have a link for below. They also uploaded another short video to their Twitter showing what I think is the Cleric again, which is with a newly implemented head tracking system. So whatever you have targeted with your mouse, be it a mob or a corpse or a chest or whatever you want, your character's head will actually look in that direction and track it. And it's one of those little bits of programming and animation that people might overlook or don't think needs to be in a game. But to me, it adds a lot to when it comes to immersion or just that sense of like, I am controlling this character.
I always thought when I'd see, because you could tell when people were looking at you or clicked on you. So I'd be running through like Stormwind or somewhere, and you'd see somebody's head turn to look at me, and then I'd stop and I'd look at them and I'd move back and forth to make their head move. Like, I know you're looking at me. So it's kind of funny you brought that up because I totally did that all the time.
Nice. Next in New World. New World has been delayed, and I am very sad about that. Until August 25th, 2020, with the beta now set to take place sometime in July. A video was put out on the game's YouTube channel by the game director Scott Lane, and he detailed the delay and attributed it in a large part to the challenges of moving the team to a working from home environment because of the whole world situation that we find ourselves in. Personally, I was expecting a delay of some kind. With everything going on in the world, almost every industry is having to adapt if they want to continue. And game development on a AAA on-site kind of level, it's just one of those businesses that's going to be hit pretty hard. The community response has been a mixed bag of emotions. Many people are talking all sorts of places and bashing the company for all sorts of things, like saying that they're using the world situation as an excuse or that they just suck and they don't know what they're doing. People are trying to get others to even just do mass refunds. And to me, I think it's a really undignified way to go about this. We've had lots of conversations in Pantheon Plus about just like giving the developers a chance. Games get delayed all the time, regardless of reasons. If you don't want to deal with that possibility, I mean, don't pre-order a game. It's as simple as that. If you think
You mean
that just
you want
because
people to take self-responsibility?
It's a wild concept. I know. Amazon knows how important launching this game is going to be for them as a company, and I'm sure they want to minimize loss of money. And yeah, they're losing some pre-orders now, but nothing that would compare to the money they'd miss out on by launching a bad game. And let's face it, video game companies have money as an end goal, and it's kind of second to artistic expression and uniqueness for a lot of those companies. I do agree, though, with a lot of people what they're saying, that Amazon should do something for the people who've invested already. They've said that they're going to continue doing the alpha, and people can still sign up for that with a chance to get in, but nothing has been mentioned about getting the pre-order people any kind of access. I'd like to see something come down the line for sure, but I just really want to play it. This delay and some other technical issues on my end have put a damper on my own channel's plans, but I have a new plan I'm working on, and it's moving forward. I'm still going to be debuting with some New World content, but it's just going to be different content than what I've been working on. I've also recently installed new editing software and learning how to work magic with that, so just some slight delays. World of Warcraft Shadowlands Alpha. The WoW Shadowlands Alpha is happening. The first batch of invitations are going out mainly to longtime players with accounts that are in good standing, as well as some content creators and journalists. If anyone is interested in getting into the alpha, all you got to do is click the beta opt-in link on the Shadowlands homepage and follow the steps there, and you'll also need an active subscription. I'm sure I don't have to go over what World of Warcraft is here, but general thoughts around the internet is that people are really liking what they've seen in the alpha so far. I don't know if you guys have looked into it at all, but a lot of people are saying it's much better than the Battle for Azeroth expansion. The alpha right now includes the Bastion Zone and a full level up experience, as well as a dungeon to run through called the Necrotic Wake. Later in April, they're going to be adding the Neverdreth Zone, as well as a look at the Tower of the Damned, which is their new endless dungeon experience that they've got designed. We could talk here for hours about all the changes that are coming to the game with this expansion, but nobody's got time for that. If you guys want to find more info on all the changes, you can head over to the website or look up some more dedicated World of Warcraft YouTubers. There's lots of them out there. I'd suggest checking out Bellular Gaming. He's got a pretty decent alpha impressions video out there right now. I just want to ask you guys, if you've looked into the alpha, are you interested in World of Warcraft anymore? It's kind of fallen off my radar, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, as somebody who never really played WoW, it's funny because I look at it now and I think, we're just desperate for something to play, right? I look at all my old games and I think, I could go back to this, I could go back to that. And I think, well, I want to do something I haven't done before. And I'm probably one of the few people that could say that about WoW. So, knowing that there's something new coming, down the pipe, with regard to WoW, it does tempt me a little bit to sort of give it a shot, but undecided.
I'm avoiding it like the plague because I don't want to get sucked back in. So I am totally pretending Shadowlands doesn't exist. And that's how I feel I will probably continue on.
I'm with you, Theric. Like, I'd never played too much World of Warcraft. I had it back like before Wrath of the Lich King, and I played for the 30 days that came with the box. And then I played 30 days of Classic when it came out. But that is pretty much the extent of my Warcraft experience.
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick funny thing about World of Warcraft. For me, my experience was in Hearthstone. If you got a new character up to level 30, you got a card back in Hearthstone. So I bought I logged into World of Warcraft the first time, got a hunter up to level whatever it was. I think it was 30, maybe 20. Got my card back, and that was it. So
next up, Last Oasis. The game is back up and people are playing. Right now, the devs are working on more stability along with a large content update patch. A new walker design will be added, as well as some iterations on the zerging problem. Many people are reporting issues of being killed on site as new players by the larger clans. So Donkey Crew has added something they're calling claiming to the game. And clans can now somehow claim a sector of the map, and when players play on that claimed piece, everyone there gets a bonus to things like harvesting and trading, as long as they are friendly to some degree. while assisting a clan who has claimed that land against other hostile clans. You will gain a wealth bonus of some kind and passively generate sweet monies of some sort. I'm not sure how the money system works in that game. They just said that you will generate wealth. They're still tweaking the system to incentivize players to work together more and protect smaller clans, so be sure to see that system evolve in the coming months. Side note, more lawsuit fun. I thought this was really interesting. Apparently back in July 2019, the artist Theo Jansen, and I'm totally butchering the pronunciation of that, he looked into suing the devs because they never asked his permission to use his invention and his art in their game. Theo Jansen is the one who created the design and physically created the wind-powered machines that he called Strand Beasts, with one actually coming to life as far back as 2011. I'm not sure if that lawsuit is going anywhere, if it's happening still, but that was 2019 in July. So if anyone knows anything else, let us know in the comments. For a little viewing pleasure, I've added a link here for a quick video between him and Adam Savage meeting up, and he describes his machines, and you get to see them in action. It's pretty cool stuff. Next up, Lord of the Rings Online. In the latest producer's letter from a man known only as Sev, to me, I don't really follow Lord of the Rings too much, he goes into pretty good detail about what's coming up for Lord of the Rings Online in 2020. In late spring, we'll see the first update, which will really bring to focus the theme for the year, and that theme is going to be a war between dwarves and orcs. So for any big Tolkien fans out there, get ready for a lot of dwarf lore to be coming your way. The new major storyline, which will span throughout the entire year, is called The Legacy of Durin and the Trials of the Dwarves. The story will take players all over some iconic dwarf locations, culminating in a 12-player raid coming in the fall. Some other cool things that they're going to be putting in there, they're reworking how legendary items work. I haven't really played Lotro that far, so I'm not sure if that was needed at all, but it must have been if they're doing it. And in the summer, players will be able to take place or be present at some of the important events in Lord of the Rings lore, like the wedding between Aragorn and Arwen. There'll be a new temporary server going up that they are dubbing the Challenge League, where players will compete for glory and gain standing on a unique leaderboard. And finally, a legendary server will become playable this fall. In this server, Sauron will have a more active role in punishing the heroes that defy him. The core mechanic of this server will be the Eye of Sauron, and when it opens, the evil forces of the world will rally up and become more powerful and challenging. But also during this time, the player characters will deal out more damage, so I'm not really sure how that's going to work. I'm curious to see what happens, because in essence, they're just making the bad guys more dangerous, but they're also making the players more powerful, so both sets of maths will just go up. And I don't really understand the point. I'm not too sure.
Big numbers.
Big deeps. Next up, Saga Leucemia. Nothing really new to report here. They're just moving into their second week of Alpha Phase 3 testing. I haven't played it, and even if I did, there's NDA, so I couldn't really say anything about it. But the grumblings, or not grumblings, but the things I'm hearing, people are really liking it. Renfail has been putting out good conversation on their Discord and stuff too, so be sure to check out their Discord if you guys want to know more. Some final random tidbits. PlayStation 5 revealed their new controller. It looks a lot like an Xbox controller, and Google Stadia goes free to use, and nobody even noticed.
When I read that piece in the notes, I just laughed. It's just so funny because it was such a big thing, and now it's like, hey, it's free. I'm like, nah.
Yeah, don't care.
Yeah.
And that's all I got for the genre news.
Awesome. Thank you guys for another great show. And hopefully everyone out there listening is excited to give us some feedback. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. We're constantly evolving the show, so hopefully it was worth your time. So again, let us know, and you can check it out on all the different media platforms that we mentioned earlier. So thank you guys for another awesome show. Hope you had fun, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Pantheon Plus Rewind. Be sure to follow Minus and all Pantheon Plus related content at Pantheon Plus on Twitter and Pantheon Plus on both Twitch and YouTube. Follow Theric at Pantheon Theric on Twitter, and be sure to follow Omega Contagion at Discord via the name Omega Contagion 6023, and of course in the Facebook group Pantheon MMORPG. Until next time.